Welcome back to the show, everybody. We got a great one for you this morning. Will crypto ever be cash? Did the U.S. Treasury just drop a huge bombshell hint on how they're going to handle crypto? We're going to also talk about the Robinhood GameStop fallout and how might XRP and crypto fit into a new unified regulatory framework. Let's roll that beautiful intro.
This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow me on Twitter at BackupBradley above at the top of the screen and everything that we're talking about here today. Let's go ahead and get into this. So right now, Bitcoin, we are over $1 trillion collectively in the market cap. We're up 3.6% on the whole space. And looking at Bitcoin now at 34,906, it's up 3% on the 24-hour and 10.15 on the 7-day. Let's go ahead and skip down right now because we got a lot to go over today. The number 4 spot coming up one spot here, XRP 37.77. It's 37 cents, and it is down 37.23% on the 24-hour, but it is up 41.42% on the 7-day. Now, let me just make a note of that because I like that. That 7 days still looking strong to me. So we're going to just make a note of that right there. So that's great stuff. So, okay, now let's go ahead and get into the news. Here we go. Skipping right to it. Look, don't forget that, 2017, 2018, we saw a bull run over about 24, 26 days or so. And it went from 20 some cents to, and if you were in before, when it was at 6 thousandths of a penny, and then went up to 20 some cents, and then again burst up to 384 for an all-time high. We are down in that space, and obviously there are much different set of circumstances, and that's what we're about to talk about in the next few minutes, is the idea of getting a unified regulatory framework with the new potential nominees being appointed to the regulatory positions at the SEC, Gary Gensler, and again, hopefully, if it continues as we've been hearing, it may be Dr. Brummer at the CFTC. We will wait to see about that. But at any rate, it's not over by a long shot. That's the point I want to make here. And in fact, Ripple, first bank in Kuwait to open Ripple Net-based payment corridor, according to the announcement, Kuwait Finance House, KFH, has launched an instant cross-border payment service for the payment corridor to Turkey. If you notice, Ripple Net just keep going. They're like the Energizer Bunny. Boom, boom, boom. Still going. I love it. That's the beauty of this thing being a global, decentralized asset, because the world is going to use it. This isn't just a U.S. matter. However, we're going to get to some of that U.S. matter right here in a second. So looking at this, Michael Val 5link says, bad timing perhaps. Robinhood reportedly shelves IPO plans in the wake of GameStop PR disaster. You don't say. Yeah, the long and short of this is, without going back over the whole GameStop thing, is that Robinhood's largest customers, if you haven't figured out now, are hedge funds. It's not you and I. And they've been reporting your buy and sell data to the hedge funds. So I'll let you walk down to the river and drink the water from there. Michael Val 5link says, in his view, it's not clear whether the Bank Secrecy Act's clauses can map well onto system-based peer-to-peer transactions. However, he said that even criminals would need to convert their cryptos back to fiat to use them. And it is a hint, and it may be more than a hint. Here we're looking at FinCEN Deputy Director Michael Moiser encouraged commenters to provide practical technical feedback on the rule. Why is Michael Moiser important? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because he left FinCEN, I believe it was, or the Treasury, one or the other there. I believe it was FinCEN. But he left there and he went over to head up Chainalysis. Chainalysis scans for illicit activity, mixers, and things that try to mix addresses for anonymity protection, normally for fraudulent or illicit activity. after setting up Chainalysis and getting it connected to many government agencies and other corporations, he went back to the Treasury and FinCEN, I believe it was, and has been given a new title of Deputy Director of Digital Innovation. So you can't make it up. Yeah, you had a government official come head up, the way station, if you will, right? Everybody's got to go across, right? So it's pretty interesting. But here what you see is that it's the question of how much has to be reported in transactional activity. Let's go ahead and just read the part here that I want to share with you. However, he said that even criminals would need to convert their crypto funds back to fiat to use them, hinting that regulations around these points of conversion may be sufficient to meet the law's requirements. At some point in the value chain, they need to get cash, to get currency, because that is legal tender, he said. Now, I'm pointing that out because we are seeing a $1.4 trillion lawsuit from the federal government against Tether. We are also at the same time watching 80% of central banks pilot, develop, in some stage of launching a central bank digital currency, of which Brad Garlinghouse has told us that there are, in fact, central banks looking to issue stablecoins, which are their CBDCs, off of the XRP Ledger open source technology, meaning that obviously they're building a new system that they're going to use with these digital tokens on a ledger. That's not speculation. They're doing it. So we need to talk about what it's going to look like after it's done. Looking at this is a clip that I played yesterday, but I want to set it up to you with the information that I'm going to show you from this video forward. Stay with me here. Let's listen to what's said right here.
I think it may sound like...
By the way, this is at the recent World Economic Forum just a week or two ago.
I'm reading off Gita's script. I'm thinking of something that's like an electrical or digital version of the SDR, which you can have a basket of multiple currency, which is going back to the multipolar system, but we dynamically evaluate which currency get added or dropped, and then we dynamically shift the weight of the currency. And then because of the technological advancement, we could have that are far more adapted than the current SDR than what we have.
Wow. So he just said a lot in about 25 seconds. What he's talking about here is agreeing with Gita Gopinath and a couple others on the panel about the idea of moving from a national currency serving as a global reserve currency, which currently is the US dollar, and moving to a multipolar backed system. Now that's very interesting, because we know that we have some information about the idea that XRP could serve as really a multi-backed asset instrument. You could collateralize anything that's tokenized asset of value and express that on the XRP ledger, whether it be multiple currencies, as he's talking about, because he was given the similarity to the SDR, which is a treasury note. Important to understand, the SDR is not currency, as special drawing right, are supplementary foreign exchange reserve assets. Foreign exchange reserve assets, defined and maintained by the IMF, International Monetary Fund. SDRs are units of account for the IMF and not currency per se, because they are backed by the 5 major currencies of the world, and they are expressed by a weighted average in that basket. When that treasury note, the SDR, is awarded or given to a country, they can then turn some of that in or all of it in and choose to get and exercise the cash of one of those 5 currencies out of that basket. That's how that works. So it's a bond. It's a treasury note or a bond. That's what we're talking about, right? And they can grab a currency of one of the 5 out of that basket. So let's make sure you're with me here. Understanding that what they're saying here from the Treasury, and by the way, Janet Yellen now confirmed. We'll have to see if she upholds this philosophy or this thought pattern of what Michael Moyser's suggesting here, and we'll see how it goes forward. But obviously, Janet Yellen, coming from the Fed, she has a very, very deep understanding of how we need to protect the U.S. dollar and other major currencies as well. So keeping in mind that their frame of thinking right now is that everyone's got to come out to cash, and that's why we're going to have CBDCs and digital dollars at some point here. And I believe we actually already have them between a public-private relationship with Circle and the USD coin and Pax and Paxos. So I believe we have representations of those things now. So understanding that just a week and a half ago, the IMF discussion is about a multipolar backed system and really alleviating the stress on fiat money like the dollar, dealing with the idea of the Triffin dilemma, which is when a national currency also serves as a global reserve currency as well. When you make national policy, it affects negatively the globe. And when you make global adjustments in policy to that monetary situation, you usually affect negatively at the national side of things. So that's how you get the Triffin dilemma. And to alleviate the stress of that, you have to really, at some point, dismiss and relieve the national currency of being the global reserve status. Don't believe it. It's still true. All of the world's leaders were just talking about it a week and a half ago. So, and the biggest economists of the world. Again, I remind you of this document, the Group of 30. This came out in July 2020. You can see the date right here. In 2019, the former governor of the Bank of England, who has worked with Ripple, clearly states that coordinating the introduction of a global official sector stablecoins, which is funny that he uses global stablecoins, and then refers to XRP. Carney, the former governor of Bank of England, raised the question of whether a globally coordinated systemic hegemonic currency could dampen the spillover shocks associated with the dominance of the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency, as we just talked about. A systemic hegemonic currency could, for example, be a stablecoin backed by a basket of deposits at different central banks. It is possible that such a stablecoin could be valuable for cross-border payments, serving a function similar to that offered in the private sector by Ripple, a real-time gross settlement system, currency exchange, and remittance network whose digital currency XRP leapfrogs slow and expensive correspondent banking. That's the governor of the Bank of England. That's not somebody that's holding XRP and has a YouTube channel. It's the former governor of the Bank of England. And he made the direct connection that he sees XRP as what would be a global stablecoin. Funny enough, the Financial Stability Board, the regulatory agency connected to the G20, a bit of a big deal, is talking here about how to regulate, supervise global stablecoins. You know, I'm going to scroll down here because the entire document, we've covered it heavily. You can punch in global stablecoins in my video playlist and see and get a plethora of material that we have covered on this matter. But here's where I want to take you now. Global stablecoin with the potential reach and adoption across multiple jurisdictions and the potential to achieve substantial volume. Listen to this. A stablecoin with potential reach and adoption across multiple jurisdictions. Isn't that interesting? So the truth is, we already know from them suggesting moving to a multipolar backed system, they don't want another national currency because it just moves the problem parallel to another national currency. It doesn't solve the problem, right? So the reality is here is they need something that achieves a couple things. Ask yourself this: what a digital asset needs to be in order to serve all corners of the world and at the same time not challenge the sovereignty of every major country or their currency? What would that digital asset need to be? Well, I believe it needs to be a global official sector stablecoin, just like the FSB, I believe, says too. Now, they don't in the FSB document mention Ripple or XRP, obviously, but they do talk about global stablecoin arrangements because there's going to be some. And the notion that there's going to be some, I think you have to start asking yourself, how could you implement something like XRP as potentially a global stablecoin, not because I said so, but because Mark Carney said so? So imagine what XRP would need to be to do that. Would it need to be a currency? Well, that doesn't solve the challenge of the sovereignty to every major currency and country around the world. I don't see the world or the governments of the world playing that game. So I see them in some instance wanting to come up with something that can protect all of them by anchoring it with some kind of classification that would allow it to operate in its full-scale intended use and not harm the asset. Remember, the whole time we're thinking about this, this is not a consumer-facing product, as we've been told many, many times by Ripple. This is why I talk about bearer bonds and the potential of getting a security designation, because there's many different types of meanings and definitions of securities. It doesn't have to be as simple, even though they claim it's an unregistered security by Ripple, it could settle with a designation of a security in a different form as a part of that settlement. In fact, I think there's a very good chance that that could happen. I love the idea of XRP just being a currency. But you have to recognize what the U.S. Treasury leaned into in the last comment or article I just showed you, is the idea that they don't want to lose control. That's why they are developing stablecoins and CBDCs, so they can track us and so they can stay in control. When I think about a bearer bond, think a little deeper with me here. What is a bearer bond? It's a fixed income security that is owned by the holder, a bearer, rather than registered owner. The difference between a bond and bearer bond is just simply this. A bond has your name and account and a registered owner to it. A bearer bond does not. It literally is, if you hold it, you own it. If I drop it on the ground and you pick it up, and technically, you own it. That's what a bearer bond is. Now, see if this sounds familiar to you, because they outlawed bearer bonds, or stopped issuing bearer bonds, I should say, in 1982 because of the anonymity of them. Are you starting to hit it now? If you think about the anonymity of the bearer bond and why they stopped issuing it in the U.S. in 1982, it's because people were using it to avoid taxes by handing out bearer bonds in place of it. And no one knew who was holding the bearer bond. And you were still getting paid for whatever that was. So they discontinued them, right? Okay, so stay with me. Now, doesn't that sound a lot like a paper version of crypto and Bitcoin? You don't know who it is. If it's not your keys, it's not your crypto. If it's not your name, not your account number, it's my bearer bond, not yours. You see the paper-digital relationship here? Only now we have the technology to be able to track said bearer bonds, because we have the tech to be able to do it. And in most cases, if they do it right, protect your anonymity, because they could see the wallet address it went to, but they wouldn't need to know any further information other than that unless it was connected to fraud or illicit activity. By the other side of this is, it also serves because it doesn't challenge every major country or their currencies either. Because this note, this bearer bond, this electronic bond, if you will, could be just like what they're talking about with the SDR, just like what this gentleman said about an electronic SDR. Exchange it in. It could be jurisdictionless, just like the definition here, across multiple jurisdictions. Because you hold this electronic bond, you could change it and exchange it on the global decentralized exchange, the XRP ledger, for any asset of value that's been tokenized, oil, cash, whatever you choose to receive. You say to yourself, oh, this is great, Brad, but if you wouldn't mind, what is it a bearer bond of? And that's a great question. I'm glad you asked. It would be a bearer bond. It would be a bond, let's say, of the XRP ledger, not Ripple. It would be a security that represents all the value. Oh, I'm sorry. How does Ripple like to say it? All the money. And it would be an electronic bond representation of all the money moving across and collateralized on the XRP ledger. But if it was a bond, Brad, I would need to be able to exchange that out to get cash. Now, how do you suppose I do that? Well, that's another great question, you know? And we had Hugo Filion on this channel from Flare Networks. And by the way, if this gets a bond designation, it looks awful damn good that you can actually take that bond and issue yourself a stable coin called FXRP. What do you think about that? Let's move on. We're not quite done. Now, let's go here. This is the International Monetary Fund Statistic Department, the treatment of crypto assets in a macroeconomic statistics. Wow. Some college words up in there. Let's go to page 27. We look at page 27, we get down to this graph, and this is the way the IMF sees it when it comes to crypto assets and the classification of them. Now, this is just one entity. It doesn't mean they're the be-all, end-all, but this is a pretty good peep in the window of what they're seeing. And if you look here on the breakdown of the tree, crypto assets and how it breaks down, crypto assets other than BTCAs, digital tokens, and it breaks down here. Now look at under this branch here, we look at hybrid tokens, same as asset tokens to the extent that characteristics are shared. Utility tokens, trade, credit, and advances debt securities if issuers recognize liability for future service. And then here we see asset security tokens, debt securities, if issuers recognizes liability and pay interest. Equity securities, if issuer recognizes liability and the holder have property rights. Couldn't you see a utility hybrid token designation allowing this thing to operate essentially as equity or debt securities and essentially working as a bond? I'm not saying that's where it's going. I'm saying we need to be thinking about that being one of the potential possibilities. And maybe, just maybe, Flare Networks ends up being one of those places that we in the retail side can go to really break down how we choose to use and invest. And I hear there's a lot of really great places to invest on the Flare Networks, not financial advice, but you should check out Mickey B. Fresh's new channel. He is crushing it over there. Shout out to you, my friend. But this really, really does lean into me. I'm leaning into this. And look, I prefer for it to be a currency, but I think we could get a stable coin designation. And it could be that the ledger is the security and the token is the global stable coin. I don't know. I am certainly speculating. But I tell you what, when it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, sometimes you just got to go ahead and call it a duck. And this guy's talking about electronic SDR a week and a half ago at the World Economic Forum, right? Not at a crypto convention, at the World Economic Forum. And this thing's starting to look a lot more like an SDR on steroids. That's how I see XRP, because it's about all the money, not just 5 currencies. That's going to do it for me. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe, leave a comment below, share with somebody you know, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Make sure you check out all the links in the description box and the comment section. They're really great products and services that I use each and every day, and they are trusted, vetted links. And if you're interested in an IRA, make sure you check out I Trust Capital, because it is the best crypto gold silver IRA on the planet, bar none. I'll catch all of you on the next one.